Okay, I don't think there is a better halacha to be learning at this point of time in our lives than the incredible halacha of Kibbud of Aim. It's just, we've kind of been locked in our houses together with our parents 24/7. There is no getting out of it. Right? There's no, I'm running here, I'm running there. All right, the occasional time you have to go places, I hear, but generally speaking, we can be Mikayim this mitzvah 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I want to give you a little bit of a hakdama. I do believe, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, I don't know if there's another halacha that is like this, that we find the most incredible Mamorei Chazal about what's going on behind the scenes in this incredible mitzvah. And that's why I wanted to dedicate today as an introduction, because as you know me by now, whenever we discuss our halacha, and I want to welcome all those that are joining us right now. You guys are great. Up early in the morning, in the American hours at least, joining us, listening to Share Live. It's Baruch Hashem, it's great to see all of you. It's really great. I'd love to see you live, but this is all we've got for the moment. So, Shas Adchaka B'Dieva Domi, we'll do the best that we possibly can. But I really want to use the opportunity, and I was learning it with Daniel for the last few weeks even. We've been learning a little bit of the Inyanim of Kibbud of Aim, and it hit me at one point like, this is so Nogea. Like, this is us right now. We're all at home with our parents, and this is what we're doing all day long. Do we know what to do? Do we know how to Mekayim the mitzvahs? The Chazon Ish, somebody came to the Chazon Ish, it was towards Bein Hazmanim, it was coming towards Bein Hazmanim, and he said, Rebbe, I'm going home. I'm going to go back to my parents. Give me some advice. What should I do? It's often a very, very nogea situation. We'll discuss that in many different situations. But he said, what do I do? I'm going home. Give me some advice before I go Ben Hazmanim back to my home, back to, different schedule. And the Chazon Ish said to him, I've got one piece of advice for you. Open up a Yoredea Simon Reish Mem and learn Hilchos Kibbud of Aim. How can you possibly go home, go back to your parents, and not know the halachas of what to do? I mean, what happens? I'll just give you a couple of examples, right? What happens if your mother asks you for a cup of water, and at the same time your father asks you for a cup of water? What do you do then? Who do you listen to? What happens, and this is a real shaila. I see he's not on yet, but I think he'll join us soon. Somebody asked me this shaila. One of the Choshev Bachrim. He wanted to, he basically the shaila is like this. He's not on, so hopefully maybe he'll hear it later on, to anytime. So basically, the shaila was that his father has a rov, a very choshev rov, and that's the family rov, that's the family rabbi. He asks his shailas either to his rov, to a Rosh Yeshiva in America, or either to me. So he wants to know, when there's a conflict, who does he pick? What happens if his father says, well, listen, the family rov paskins, that is asa. But he says, well, but I asked my Rebbe, I asked my Rosh Yeshiva, I asked my rov, whatever it is, and he told me it's fine. What do I do now? Or there's so many different situations of things. Do you have to look for the situations to serve your father or your mother, or only if they ask you? When are you potter? When do I have to say that Kibbud of Aim? I don't need to do it. Thank you very much. Great advice, mum and dad, but not right now. It's not for me. I don't need to listen to you. At what stage is Negeh v'Shidduchim? Right? I've had to deal, for example, with a conflict between a parent and a child about, is it a good shidduch? Is it not a good shidduch? Do we listen? Do we not listen? And the parent on one hand says, no, this is not a good shidduch for my son. This is not a good shidduch for my daughter. And the son or the daughter are saying, well, I'm sorry to tell you, mum and dad, I think it's a great shidduch. I think this is going to really, really work. What do you do in such a case? What do you do in a situation where you think you're right? You want to stay another couple of months in yeshiva, and your parents are like, I think it's the time. You have to go back. You have to go to college, go to university, go to work, whatever it might be. What do you do? Right? What do you do in such a situation? What do you do in many situations where your parents ask you, you don't want to give them what they ask for, whatever it may be? What about a simple conversation with your parents? People don't realize that the smallest conversation with one of your parents, you could be over on so many Isura Doraisas with one conversation. It's incredible. But I'm not going to go through all the different shilas. We have got a lot to go through. As you know, we're learning the sugyas of the Gemara as well, which is even more exciting. So not only are we learning the Psak Halacha, but we're learning the Makoros, we're learning where it all comes from. But I want to dedicate today, as I mentioned to you, as a Hakdama. I want to understand, what is this mitzvah all about? When does it apply? And, how bad is it? Is it really as bad as they make it out to be? So I want to read you, and I'm going to quote from many, many places. I will try and give you the Marmakomis. I see some of you guys, Baruch Hashem, have got notepads and pens. You're there ready to write down all the different Marmakomis. It's great, Baruch Hashem. You guys are amazing. Wow. This is technology, you see? You can see exactly what's going on. Baruch Hashem. So I'm going to give you a lot of different Marmakomis with a lot of different sort of ideas from different places, and I want you just to digest this mitzvah. Okay, because I'm not going to go to any halachas today. Tomorrow we'll discuss the halachas and we'll go through exactly how it applies. But I really want to go into the idea of exactly where does this come from and how chomer it is. So we'll start with the Gemara in Kiddushin. The Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Lamed on the base, we'll get to it soon, brings like this. Tana Rabbanon. Shloisha Shutvin Hein Ba'adam. There are three partners of a person. There are three partners that made every single one of you. We were all created with three partners. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Oviv Ve'imai. Says the Gemara, Bisman she'adam mechabed es Oviv ve'es imai. If you're being mechabed your parents, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi, so listen carefully to the words. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says, Mala ani aleihem ki'ilu darti b'neihem v'chabduni. You served me. Can you imagine? Could you think for a moment about, everyone's busy with the song Thank You Hashem, which is kavaldik, but think about all the wonderful things that the Rebbeinu Shalom does for us and keeps on doing and always did for us. It's incredible. If you would have the opportunity to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom for 5 minutes, can you imagine? Hashem is going to come into your home for 5 minutes and you can serve him. You can machabed him. You can respect him. Everything. What would you do? You would prepare the moment. It would be an incredible situation. What an opportunity I have, right? Says the Gemara, every time you will machabed your parents, and again, we'll have to understand on a halachic, point of view, what does it mean to machabed your parents? What does it mean to respect your parents? We'll have to understand if things have changed from the Zman of the Shulchan Aruch, Bizman Hazeh, things are different. And we'll see different Lashonis, as we'll see Be'ez Hashem from some of the Rishonim already. So again, the Gemara clearly tells us that when we machabed our parents, it's how Rebbeinu Shalom says, you have been machabed me. It's mufurish. Says the Gemara, Laman Aleph Oman Aleph. And again, I'm just skimming through it. We'll talk about it when we get to the Gemara Be'in properly. Tani Chader Kemedu Rav Nachman. Bizman she'odom mitzares oveves imoy chas v'sholom. If a person says something or does something that's mitzvah one of his parents are very upset by what he just said. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want to know what's going on right now in Shamayim? Can you imagine? This Chazal, the Gemara is telling us what's happening in Shamayim. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yafa Sisi, I did well. Shaloi dauti b'neihem, that I did not live amongst you. She'il molei dauti b'neihem tzaruni. You would have mitzar me. Says the Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm not with you. I'm not with you. So if you want a scholar to remove the Rebbeinu Shalom from your homes, this is it, simple as this. You just basically, mitzar your parents, chas v'shalom, we should never do this, but that's what it means. When you mitzar your parents, the Rebbeinu Shalom feels the tsar, because he was also a shutav to create you. And therefore, just like your father and your mother are a shutavim, they're partners, the Rebbeinu Shalom is the other third. And if you mitzar one, you mitzar all of them. It's almost like, again, havdol elef, alfei havdolos, a million differences. If you can imagine, a product just comes out and there are three partners in the business. Three partners worked for years and years to develop this product, to market it, to think about it. It was incredible. And now they've come out with it. And you go over to one of the partners and you say, this is terrible. I mean, who thought of this? Have you insulted one or you insulted all of the partners? Obviously, you said it to one. But all of the other partners, who may not be present at that moment, basically feel the tsar because you bothered them. That's what's going on, says the Gemara. An incredible insight into what's going on over here. Says Rabbeinu Yonah is a gewaldiger Rabbeinu Yonah Nigeras Hatshuva, and he writes at the end of Drush Gimel, he says that if a person wants, I'll just quote it in English, if a person wants to machabed the Rebbeinu Shalom, what does he do? He wants to pay back the Rebbeinu Shalom for something that the Rebbeinu Shalom did for us. Machabed your parents. Umimela shemekabascha ki'ilu kibbud es HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says Rabbeinu Yonah Rishon. That's how it is. V'ha'olam lo nivra ela. These are big words, Rabbi say. I'm quoting your words of a Rishon, and as we know, we are medayik in every word that a Rishon ever says. Rabbeinu Yonah says, "V'ha'olam lo nivra ela lachabed boy es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The entire world was created for us, human beings, to machabed the Rabbeinu Shlonim. How do we do it? Says Rabbeinu Yonah, it's simple. Machabed your parents. Now, it's not so simple, obviously, but, again, we'll talk about it, la halacha, exactly how to deal with it. There's the Yerushalmi, at the beginning of Masechtas Peah, and the Yerushalmi says, he calls the mitzvah of Kibbud of Ve'em Chamura Mina Chamurais. It's the most stringent of the stringent. That means all the stringent mitzvahs, whatever they may be, this is the most. So this is basically the top end of all the stringent mitzvahs. The Shulchan Aruch, and we'll get to that Be'ez Hashem, but I just want to quote it to you now, in Yeridei Siman Reish Mem, which is basically all the halachas over here. It's one siman, and it goes through all the different halachas. He says like this, Lashon of Shulchan Aruch, Tzorich lizoyeh ma'oid, b'kivud aviv v'imoy u'b'moyram. And says, it's very interesting, you don't find this lashon of ma'oid. You find sometimes by Ribbis, for example, and other places as well, ma'oid by women and other things, and Even Ezer, Siman, Chafalov. But al Kaponim, generally, we don't find this business of being very careful. Over here, the Shulchan Aruch says, be very, very careful. Says the Yalkut Me'am Loyes and Paushas Yisroi Ois Tof Reish Mem Vov. He Gedoyla Mitzvahs Kibbud of Ve'em. Ve'en Gedoyla Memenu Ella. What is the one mitzvah that is bigger and more choshev than Kibbud of Ve'em? The one mitzvah. You probably guessed it, right? Talmud Torah. Very good, Yitzi. Talmud Torah, that's exactly right. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah is the only mitzvah, which we know that mitzvah of Talmud Torah is keneged kol Tariag mitzvahs. So if the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is basically equal to all 613 mitzvahs, the next level under that is Kibbud of Ve'em. That's incredible. That's really incredible. At least I think this is unbelievable. There's a Sefer Keren David. Keren LeDavid in Parshas Yisroi brings down. There's also a Meshech Chachma, by the way, in Parshas Yisroi, which obviously is going on the Aseres HaDibros, which, by the way, does sort of give us a little bit of a hint with how big this mitzvah is. It's one of the Aseres HaDibros, right? Not every mitzvah is written mefurish in the Aseres HaDibros, but this one is. So it's a very serious one. And he writes down that Keren LeDavid and the Meshech Chachma that the mitzvah of Kibbud of Ve'em is the Yisoid HaEmuna the Chol HaTorah Mesur Al Yedei Mesuras HaOvis Ish Mepi Ish Ad Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, when we mechabed our parents, we are being mechazik the inyan that our parents got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, add a couple of them, and eventually you reach Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. So when you mechabed your parents, you're being mechazik this idea of a Messiah in Klal Yisrael, which is also incredible. I want to tell you also an amazing losha. We'll get into more. There's a lot more, by the way. I'm just getting started, by the way. I'm just getting started on the schar, and we'll talk about the oynish as well. But just to give you an idea, there's a one of my very favorites for him, the Yisoid V'Shoresh V'Avoda. Where's Aaron Friedman? Yisoid V'Shoresh V'Avoda in Shavot Perek Beis says an amazing thing. He brings down that there's a Chiyav Godel, that means in English there is an absolute obligation, a big obligation. Lios Baki B'Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim. B'chol Hilchos Seha, right? Come on, everyone knows this. You've got to be a baki in all of Orach Chaim. How do you wake up in the morning if you don't know Hilchos Natilas Yadayim? How do you daven if you don't know Hilchos Tefillah? How do you make a bracha and eat something if you don't know Hilchos Brachas? How do you keep Shabbos? The list goes on, right? So Baruch Hashem, you guys are great. You're in yeshiva where we try to emphasize a bit of halacha, and we try every day to do halacha, and that's why Be'ez Hashem we're on our way to become a baki. Maybe we're not there yet, but we're on our way. But it's interesting to note that Yisrael V'Shoresh V'Avoda writes. He says Orach Chaim, and then he says V'oid kama halachos m'Shulchan Aruch Yeridea, which is the other chelik of Shulchan Aruch, and he mentions one of them as an example. V'Hilchos Kibbud of Ve'em, V'Rabbi, Agav, you Rebbe as well. But he says Kibbud of Ve'em is one of those things that a person has to be a baki, and you really have to know. It's a real serious thing. I'll give you a couple more ideas. Right, as I said, I've got a long list over here. There's a tremendous amount of papers over here. We'll try to get through all of them. Is Hashem. Okay. This is Gavaldik. There's a Rambam, okay? The Rambam in Hilchos Mamorim Perek Vav Halacha Aleph, look it up, it's incredible. He says, V'hi mitzvahs asay gedola. Very, again, a rare lashon in the Rambam. For those of you that I'm sure are bekim in Rambam, well, like, of course, the Rambam doesn't say that very often. The Rambam says it's a mitzvah. But when it comes to this mitzvah, the Rambam says, oh, there's a mitzvah say gedola. This is a very, very serious mitzvah. I'll tell you a lashon of the Tana Dvei Eliyahu. Tana Dvei Eliyahu, I don't know if I have the sefer right over here. I'm not going to bring it out right now. It's a collection of essays Many of them were written by Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, so just in case you want to know the author of the editor of the Sefer of Toned Eliyahu, he writes like this. I'm going to quote: "V'chol hamavakish yomim v'shonim v'oishe v'kovod v'chayim aruchim ba'olam hazeh or la'olam haba." You know what that means? That means if a person wants an incredible life, long life, a happy life, a rich life, long in this world and in the next world, what does he do? Chayim she'ein lahem soif, a life that has no end. V'keit v'tachlis yaseh es rotzen ovid v'imoy. Rabbi Yisai, that's a direct instruction from Eliyahu Hanavi. You do your parents' ratzon, you will have, again, Yomim v'shonim v'oishe v'chovod chayim aruchim ba'olam hazeh ba'olam haba chayim she'ein lahem soif v'keit v'tachlis. That's a pretty good bracha, Rabbi Yisai. Straight from Eliyahu Hanavi. You do the ratzon of your parents, that's an incredible thing. That's unbelievable thing. There is a Yerushalmi, incredible Yerushalmi. It's in Peah, Perik Aleph Halacha Zayin, for those of you that are writing notes. He brings like this: Tana Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, for all of you that are not going to be Zoicha, this Lag Ba'omer to be by the Heilige Reb Shimon, and daven by the Heilige Kevo, the Reb Shimon Meiron, at least understand something that the Heilige Reb Shimon said. Tana Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Godel Kibbud of Aim, Shehiduvu HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yosem Echvoidai. This is, I'm only saying this because I'm quoting the Yerushalmi, who's quoting a Zohar Kodesh. That the Rabbeinu Shalom prefers that you respect your parents more than you respect him. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy. And he brings a raya from the Pasuk Kabbalas Avicha, Ve'simecha, and then it says after Kabbalas Hashem Mahoncha, and it says how do you mechaber the Rabbeinu Shalom with everything, and it says that they're feeding them and everything else. Anyway, the Yerushalmi over there brings a raya. There's a Mordechai Yaris Tvash, Rabbi say, Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, Chelik base, Drash base, incredible. He brings down. Where am I? He brings down. He says also it's a Radak, by the way, in Shoftim Perek Vov Yud Aleph. Right, Daniel? I think you did this Shoftim in the morning before Shachris. So in Shoftim there's a Radak that says the same thing. That brings a Medrash that says an incredible thing, because, and I'm going to quote you this in a minute as well. And that is that when you machabed your parents, you're actually bringing the Geula. So if you want a hand in bringing the Geula and bringing Mashiach, this is where it comes from. How do I know this? Because, as I told you, the Yaris Tvash, Rabbi Yonis and Eibeshitz, plus the Radak in Shoftim brings a Medrash that says when the Malach met Gidon, and I'm sure we're all familiar with this episode, come on, it's Nach, right? Because every Yeshiva Bocher knows Nach, right? And he says like this, he said to him, it's Roy that you would have brought the Geula to Klal Yisrael. Why? And again, this is a Medrash talking, because you're Makan Kibbud of Aim. So we see again from here, from the Yaris Tvash, and he brings again this Radak, that if a person is Makai in the midst of Kibbud of Aim, he's actually being Makai of the Geula, which is tremendous. The Menorah Sama'or Daf Yud Gimel also brought down, it's also much more this way in the Gemara Be'etzem and Kedushin Laman on the base. You're bringing the Shechina to your home. Now this is what we mentioned in the beginning. We said that if a person with Sarah's parents, the Shechina leaves. That means if you're Mechabed your parents, the Shechina comes down. So if you want the Rabbeinu Shalom to live in your homes, and Baruch Hashem, we're in our homes for a long time now. Right? Hopefully it'll be ending very soon, but we've been in our homes for a long time. But we want the Shechina to be with us. Everybody wants the Shechina in their homes. Everybody wants the Shechina to be together with them, with their parents and everything together. Says Chazal, this is it. You mechabed your parents, you're bringing the Shechina into your home. Not only that, Rabbi said, there's a Medrash Tanchum and Parshas Kedoshim that says if you mechabed your parents, great school for good kids, or you'll have amazing children. Lebonim, Yeshorim, V'tzadikim. Okay, you want good kids. We're living in 2020, Rabbi say. It's very hard, right? It's hard. You know, I look at my, I'm not that old, but I look at my kids and I see, my gosh, where they've come from, where I was when I was a kid, and can you imagine with their parents? And it's just not normal what's going on in the world. We all want good children. How do we do it? So here it is. Medrash is telling us if you mechabed your parents, I mean this is double poshet anyway, it's a double poshet. If you mechabed your parents, your children will see that, and they'll see how you react to your parents, and they will very much mirror that, how it goes over there. But there's another thing as well. Rabbi, I told you I'm nowhere near finished. I'm only still getting started with this mitzvah of Kibbud Aim. When I told you it's a serious mitzvah, I didn't mean there's a couple of nice rewards like Avichas Yomin, like the Torah says. There's a lot more going on. So I'll tell you as well, there's a Reb Chaim Pelagi has a sefer, Toichochas Chaim, you're probably familiar with it. So if you look in Parshas Tolos, so he says over there, if you don't want ayin hora, make sure you look after your parents. Not only that, there's a ton of Eliyahu again, Eliyahu Novi, that says, you will never do an Aveira. It's an unbelievable thing. It's just what's going on over here. It's incredible. It's just totally incredible what's going on over here. And then Medrash Talpiyah brings that keneged midah, because you are machabed your parents. The Rabbanan Shalom will give you children that are machabed you, which is tremendous. Also in Gavaldik. However, if a person, Rachmana litzlan, does not machabed their parents, and he doesn't do what they need, he mitzar them chas v'shalom, it's an even worse type of thing, then you can imagine if the schar of Kibbud of Aim is so great, then it means that the punishment for not being mechabed your parents also is terrible. And Chadal, I don't want to spell this out too much, but Rashi already brings from a Mechilta, and there's a Sefer Chasidim, some Shin Mem Beis that brings down already, that you can't imagine the terrible punishment of someone that's not mechabed his parents in the proper way. What's going to await him in this world and the next world, and with his children and with his muzzle and everything. It's really, 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 really bad. Not only that, there's a very interesting lashon in both the Rif and the Rosh in the 8th parak of Yuma that say these are one of the things that's ma'akiv as a tshuva. In other words, we always want to do tshuva. We want to become better people. We sometimes realize, oy vavoy, what's going to be? Shemi Rachem. It's coming a time we have to do tshuva. Says the Rosh, says the Rif, this is something that can be ma'akiv es ha tshuva, which is an incredible, incredible thing. I do want to tell you as well, there's a Merdeki Yaris Dvash. The Yaris Dvash writes, now I don't remember the year, I don't remember, it's gone from my head right now, but we're talking a long time ago. The Yaris Dvash was a long time ago. Listen to what he writes then. He says, Avosenu harabim, we got to the generation and the situation where parents have to act with kavod to their children because they're scared of their own children. Wow, what a novi that is. You look in the world nowadays, parents are scared of their children. And that's even more why we have to learn these halachas, and we have to mechazik ourselves in these halachas, not just because we're stuck at home with our parents, but because there's so much going on within this mitzvah that it's just passionate and unbelievable thing. And it goes more than that as well. That the Shinover Rebbe once said this, that, and it applies to many things as well. It's like Asher Yotze, how much is that Asher Yotze worth? When we come out the bathroom, we say Asher Yotze. No, I don't know. No, again, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but for many people, Rosh Einkein, you got that mitzvah of matzah on Seder night. A beautiful, we take a bracha on matzah, or Dalet Minim, how beautiful it is. Or Hanukkah only happens once a year, right? When it comes to our parents, we're living with our parents the whole time. And anyone you normally live with, it's much, much harder to take it more seriously. It's much, much harder to mechaber all the time because you become rogel with them. And that's why, in a way, it requires even more chizik than anything else. And the way the Yesod V'Shorish V'Avodah writes, the Yesod V'Avodah, by the way, is a Talmud of the Vilna Gaon. One of the Ikket Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon says that we have to dedicate time in our day to learn Hilchos Kibbud of Aim. There's no way you could. It's like the Havetz Chaim says in the beginning in the Akdom of Chelik Gimel in Orach Chaim. What does he say? He says that there's no way that you can keep Shabbos without knowing the halachas. It's just not going to happen. There's no way. It's physically not going to happen. So it's the same thing, says the Yaritz Vas. If you don't know Hilchos Kibbud of Aim, not just how chomer it is, but you don't know everything that goes on, there's no way that you can do it in a regular, because you have no idea how to keep it. Okay, Rabbi Yisrael, let's go a little bit further. There's a Merdeka Maral. The Maral writes in Gu'are, he says that the mitzvah of Kibbud is a mitzvah sichlis. Mitzvah sichlis means it's poshet in your brain. Any normal person understands that you have to have Hakoros HaToiv for your parents. I mean, even the Goyim know this, right? Mother's Day, Father's Day, once a year you send a card, Yaitza. I'm Yaitza Kibbud of Aim in a Goyish world. But in our world, we obviously take it much more seriously. The Chai Odom says a very scary thing. I'll tell you the lashon of the Chai Odom. The Chai Odom says an amazing thing. Says the Chai Odom, I want to tell you where it is. It's an Ois base. He says that a person that says, what do I owe to my parents? I don't owe them anything. Right? You basically have the attitude of an ungrateful person. Says the Chai Odom, I think this is also a similar lashon in the Chinuch. You will eventually come to say that about the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that is very much how the Chinuch learns Pshat in this mitzvah. The Sefer Chinuch says that the Hakoros HaTov we have to our parents is a way of having Hakoros HaTov to the Rebbeinu Shalom. So therefore, if we don't have the correct Hakoros HaTov to our parents, then eventually we'll get to the stage we'll have zero Hakaras HaTov to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that's a very, very scary thing to say. It's a very, very scary thing. Every child has the opportunity to actually cause tremendous bracha in his home, and it's up to you guys. It really is up to you guys. Every single one of you, Baruch Hashem, have parents, and your parents are at home, and you're living with them, and you're interacting with them. You really have an opportunity to change things. You know, what's the connection? The Torah tells us, as we know, you get a long life. So, although I found this in many places, but one place I found it before is Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonenfeld, the Rav of Yerushalayim, once explained, and he quoted many places, that, you know, when we machabed our parents, it sometimes takes time. And it does take time to actually sometimes machabed. You have to be busy getting them drinks, making them food, getting clothing for them, running around, getting groceries, all sorts of things. It takes time, right? But I want to learn. I've got other things to do. Says Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonenfeld, the Torah is telling you that if you are properly going to Mekayim the mitzvah Kibbud of Aim, you will get back that time. That time is on the Rebbeinu Shalom's cheshbon. You'll get it all back. You know, there's a Mordecai Medrash. The Medrash says that Esther, as we know, had no parents, and she cried every day. Why? Because she had no parents? The Medrash says no. She cried because she wasn't able to Mekayim the mitzvah of Kibbud of Aim, the Zohar Kodesh, Rabbi say. There's an unbelievable Zohar Kodesh that tells us that we know that Esav was an unbelievable baki in Kibbud of Aim. So much so that, says the Zohar, because Esav did this, he allowed the Golus to happen, which is an incredible thing, which means that if Esav caused the Golus to happen because he would Kibbud of Aim, if we would get back this mitzvah to Yaakov's side of things, and we would fight to be Machazan Kibbud of Aim, we would be able to end the Geula. And that's why, by the way, the Yetzer Hara makes it so difficult, because he realizes the stake. It's like almost when you go to a building site, the more signs you see, the more dangerous the building site is. It's the same thing over here. The more things we're seeing about Kibbud of Aim, the more dangerous it is, and the more the Yetzer Hara fights it to make sure that you don't do it. And obviously the biggest and most first step that we can do is to just learn the halachas. Just to learn the halachas, like the Chofetz Chaim, as we mentioned. If we don't learn it, we'll never know it, and it's not negeya, which is why it is so important. Let me just move on to a couple of things. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. It's already late. I want to end with one story. Okay, one story. Incredible story. It's an incredible story. It's a true story. Unbelievable Maisa. Listen to this story. It's just incredible. This story happened. The year was 1938. That was the year. And there were two Yidden, one called Shmaya and Rini Reichman. Now, Shmaya and Rini Reichman were planning the celebration for the bar mitzvah of their oldest son. This was incredible. Their first son, their oldest son. His name is Eli, or Edward Reichman. Now, the Reichman, as we know, had established themselves in the world as one of the most respected and wealthy families, especially where they lived. They lived in Vienna at the time. And the entire city of Vienna was looking forward to this bar mitzvah celebration. They were looking forward to have this incredible celebration, which they knew would be the celebration of a lifetime. And they were very excited. And this is the richest family over there. They took one of the nicest halls, and they took the hotels for all the guests. And it started to get, the preparations were really revving up. It was incredible. The Reichmans were also expecting a very choshev guest, and that was the Puppe Rebbe, Rabbi Yaakov Greenwald Zatzal. The Puppe Rebbe would often visit Vienna, and he would go there for medical reasons, whatever. There was a hospital there were doctors there. And the Rebbe normally stayed in the house of the Reichmans. Now, he had established a tremendous kesher with the parents, but he also established a tremendous kesher with the Bacha, the Bar Mitzvah boy, who used to walk the Rebbe to and fro shul. And the son, the Bar Mitzvah boy, who was becoming Bar Mitzvah in a couple of weeks, had basically invited the Rebbe, before the Bar Mitzvah happened, he invited the Rebbe, would you come to my Bar Mitzvah? And the Rebbe says, sure, of course I'll come to a Mitzvah. Mitzvah Shem sent me an invitation. I'll try the best I do. I'll try to come. So can you imagine the Puppe Rebbe was coming? This was the wealthiest family in Vienna. Everyone was excited for the Bar Mitzvah of the century. Now the year, again, as we said, was 1938. Not many families were zoichet to have the private telephone in their own home. The Reichmans were one of the fortunate ones that did. Right? They're very successful and whatever it is, and they had the need and they had the means to afford a telephone. Now, a few days before the Simcha, mamash a few days before the Bar Mitzvah, the family received a very urgent call. They were informed that Bar Mitzvah boy's grandfather, Reb David Reichman, who was the Rosh HaMishpacha, he lived in Belet, in a small little village in Hungary, and he suffered a terrible stroke, a very serious stroke. He was unable to travel to Vienna. They didn't know what to do. I mean, apart from the fact that, he's ill, but what are we doing with this bar mitzvah? I mean, they can't go on and make a bar mitzvah without the grandfather, who's the head of the whole family. What should they do? Should they cancel it? What should they do? They didn't know what to do. So Eli's father, the bar mitzvah boy's father, Shmaya, decided to make a decision. There is no way we are making this bar mitzvah without my father, without the grandfather, the bar mitzvah boy. Not happening. I'm cancelling it. Without any moment hesitation, Mr. Reichman called the hall and the caterer and the photographer and the florist and everyone. I'm cancelling the event. All the guests were notified. The hotels were cancelled.